Welcome to the Three Answers podcast. Each episode, we invite a guest to answer 3 questions about themselves. This is show number 3, recorded on June 10th, 2025. In Portland, Oregon, I'm your host today, Rob Bednark. Today, I'm excited to talk with Vivek in Gothenburg, Sweden. Welcome, Vivek. Thanks for joining me.
Hey Rob, glad to be here.
We met several months ago, and I really enjoyed your warmth, your positivity. I'm looking forward to hearing your answers and getting to know you better.
Likewise.
Would you give us a little introduction? You can tell us whatever you want.
Sure. I am just a guy who is living in his third continent, enriching my multi-continental life experiences. Originally from India, where I grew up, and then had most of my preliminary adult life in Northeast US, where I worked as a UX designer to UX strategist for a Wall Street bank. Right now, I am in my third continent, living in Sweden. Moved recently, end of last year, working as a fractional with multiple startups and ventures, doing UX strategy and building new products across the spectrum of problems. So that's me.
Wow, wonderful. So when you think about those 3 continents, those 3 countries you've lived in now, what kind of stands out? Like what, if you had to kind of capture a signature of each, or how in your memory they kind of differ from each other?
Yeah, so it's it's funny. I've been appreciating my previous country, continent, life experience in the next one. Like, for example, when I was in the US, I appreciated more of the history and the longevity and the sustained scale that I grew up in. Like, for example, I grew up in a temple town in India, which is very typical. It's a few thousand years old. I don't know the exact number, right? Because you don't realize it when you are in there. So when I'm in the US, when I look at history, architecture, culture of a few hundred years, and that being like the national parks in the US, how the whole system kind of embraces that, keeps that pristine, right? Or any kind of history that has been cherished. So when I see that, I suddenly realize, like, oh, it's a few hundred years. What am I talking about? Like, I grew up in a place where it was easily scattered off 1,000 years. So that's one thing I appreciated. Now that I'm in Europe, I appreciate, keep aside the current problems or the current noise and the distractions. I now admire when I look at US about the scale, about the actual fact that it's a country of diversity in reality. Like, it's hard to think of so many people from so many cultures and so many backgrounds come together in a single place in the entire world. I know there are more global cities all over the world, right? Like, there is London, there is Singapore, whatnot. But as a country, when I look at US, especially in this context, yeah, it's predominantly West Coast and East Coast, California and New York, where this happens a lot. But it's spread out now. So when I look at that in my second continent, second country, I appreciate that. Europe, it's unique in its own way. There is so much. It's like between both these, I would say. One is more recent. The other is probably a little old in terms of history and culture. And Europe writes somewhere in the middle in terms of art, for example, in terms of architecture, for example. And it also feels a little bit home for me in Europe. In India, every state, for example, almost like in Africa too. I'm learning more about Africa now that I'm in this time zone. That you have multiple languages, multiple cuisines, and all that stuff. And I'm starting to experience that in Europe, which has been refreshing.
Wonderful. Wow. So lucky to get to experience so many different places.
So privileged. I use the word privileged. I am privileged to do what I'm doing.
It's wonderful that you appreciate that.
Yeah.
Let's see what 3 questions you chose. First question, what's a tool you can't live without?
Yeah. So right now, For me, it is actually Todoist. It's kind of your to-do list management, task management tool. I started exploring a different tool set from my past lives. Once I moved here, I started with a break once I moved to Sweden, and then I started meeting new people, new perspectives, because I wanted to have some heterogeneous perspectives added before even I decide what I want to explore. So, which means it's a lot of meeting new people, doing new things, learning new things. And then at one point, I also started working, which means you are now handling multiple types of projects in a consulting capacity. So, a traditional way of how I used to manage my to dos or tasks didn't work. I needed something beyond the traditional tool set. And this thing to do is, of course, as a designer, when I see a product that is good, that solves for the experience as opposed to just the aesthetics, I usually fall in love quickly. Todoist is a functional and a beautiful product and does the job pretty well at scale. Right now, that has been my tool, which I'm using for managing my personal life as well as managing the professional life across the board. It does some interesting things of how you habit form. There is, of course, science to what these guys do. And they do it in a subtle way instead of not making you feel bad. That's the other important thing. So, yeah, Todoist is my tool. Probably I cannot live without these days.
Ah, Todoist. Yeah, I've heard of that. So it helps you with to-do lists, getting things done. And you said it helps with habit forming. How does it do that?
So I don't remember exactly the scientific terms, but it goes something like this, right? So for example, when I learned to one of Duolingo's CPO's podcast, the tricky thing is they have this streak, right? What's important is the continuity. More than 2 days is dangerous. Like you don't need to have a continuous streak of 50 days. What's more important is you don't leave a gap of more than 1 day. That is what more dangerous to habit forming than having a streak of 100 days, 200 days, 300 days. So, and then I think based on their research, I think it was Friday or a Saturday, something like that. When somebody gets through that Friday or Saturday, something like that, it helps. The reason I'm using that Duolingo example is sometimes big tasks need to be broken down to actually accomplish, because eat the frog, right? As an example. So Todoist kind of has their own templates and all that stuff for you to get started. So on one end, they let you eat more frogs every day. The tool works that way. That's one. On the other end, it's easy to break down stuff. For example, I am planning my London trip during the summer vacation. It's a huge plan. It's one thing to break it into multiple tasks, but the easiest way to break an habit form would be to, instead of having one end date where you are trying to do a big task, just make it a recurring task. So you do little bits of it every day, and 10 a.m. I literally type this up and then it picks up my setup. So I'm not going to a Jira task setup where I'm putting a date and recurrence and all that stuff. I'm just typing in a simple box. So even the very fact that it starts off like that, it's like writing down on paper. You just quickly type it down and then it picks up. Okay, every other day. When I put every other day, it picks that up. And then I say from Saturday, and then it picks up the date. And I could have P1, which is priority one, priority two. And even to put it in a folder and project, I don't pick it. I just put hash and then put home, travel, and then it picks it up. So that's what I meant habit forming, as in the way how the product works is to break down stuff and eat your biggest frogs, which is quite important because now I am aspiring to do a lot of things, which is hard. You cannot do everything. So that's where Todoist kind of helps me. And that's why it's more than the tool, it's actually the stuff it does behind mentally to habit form and to accomplish the most important things is why I cannot live without that tool.
Ah, I see. For myself, I've tried a number of strategies over the years to get things done. I've tried some simple to-do apps like Google Keep and Apple Reminders, but I've often had trouble staying disciplined. So I'm curious how Todoist has been working out for you, and are you the kind of person who's kind of disciplined anyway?
Yeah, I'm also, needless to say, one of those who thinks I'm smart enough not to use the tool to keep me on track, right? To keep me honest. Of course, it's one thing to look at it as a to-do list. It's another thing to look at it as helping you with habit forming, helping you with accomplishing things, right? Like long term, not on a short term basis. So from that standpoint, that's why I kind of like even the starting point. I know they have put in a lot of effort on designing it this way, where sometimes I don't know if you have had this feeling, you don't want the tool to command you. It's one thing to say notifications and all this stuff, but some tools go to the point of they're like commanding you or making you feel bad. To do is kind of have this thing where they start with you have the control. It's an illusion too. But you have the control and you do the nudging, which is what's helping with the behavior side of things. I don't know why this is becoming an advertisement for Todoist here, but that kind of helps. I know there are a few other tools that does it, just that Todoist falls under the exact checkboxes that fits my needs.
Ah, nice. Wow, I can feel the excitement you have for the product,
Yeah.
and that actually gets me excited too. It
Yeah.
sounds like it's really helped you a lot,
Yep.
and
Yep.
that's great. Good for you. Perfect. Moving on to the second question. What is the most creative thing you do? Or what do you do to be creative?
Being creative is something I've been on and off early stages of my life, right? Like, am I a creative person? Maybe I'm not a creative person. Although I'm a designer, I usually tell this to almost every new person I meet. Sometimes I hesitate to call myself a designer because I'm a problem solver who uses design as a tool. So the creativity is not sometimes you can see. It's more behind the scenes. So for me, the most creative thing in my process is looking for parallels and analogical thinking. Long time back, a good friend of mine told me that, like, hey, you are good at building ideas from connecting dots, then creating ideas. That stuck with me. This was a friend from college who has seen me do something outside my regular life and current professional life. So I did think about it, like why I do what I do. I had to do some postmortem to figure out. So I then realized the thing that adds to my better solutioning has been analogical thinking. So, for example, I look at parallels from one solution and take the ingredients that work for another problem. If I have to give a day-to-day example, so I am building an conversational AI experience for a project I'm working on, and that project is situated in US market. But the solution I'm applying is something I am jamming with a talent marketplace with a founder in Africa for the African marketplace. But there are parallels I'm able to pick from there and apply here. And these parallels go extreme when it comes to the UX UI side of things. I look at a website and something that they have done for marketing and communications, and pieces of it I apply it to onboard clients in a B2B SaaS product. So I actually have a running collection of things that I see. So I have like million dots accumulated using browser bookmarks, and I also use this tool my mind to gather it all together, and I have my own rough notes of things that I see. For example, the onboarding experience that some products do is usually above average experience wise. They really hit that sweet spot. So I keep that running list. And when I am solving a problem for a project tomorrow, I go to that running list and apply the correct solutions. So yeah, that's the most creative thing I do in my process. And I'm a big believer in good designers copy, great designers steal. I don't think I'm an original creative person or anything. I just know the right thing to apply for the right problem. And I do that by looking at parallels constantly.
Well, that sounds very creative indeed. And that was really a gift that your friend gave you to recognize that in you and make you aware of it.
Yeah.
Where do you think that comes from? Or do you see it coming from any family or influences? Or maybe what are your first memories of kind of having that talent or skill?
I've been thinking about it. To be honest, I haven't found out what is the root for it. I've been talking to people who knew me for a long time. Now I'm kind of part of my profession is also to do a lot of generative research to figure out the why behind the what. And I'm doing that now that I moved away from what I did for a long time. I have the mental space to explore new things. And part of it is I'm talking to old friends from 20 years back who still have an inclination to have a conversation with me to figure out. So I'm piecing it together slowly. I don't think it's a family thing. What I do is probably something anybody could do, should do, kind of a thing. It's just that I always loved the complexity of multiple things, multiple dots to work on. And seeing a pattern in complexity is probably the reason behind that. So having all these dots and then looking for patterns and professionally applying those patterns to a new solution is probably the reason. Now I'm still talking about the reason. How did I come about doing things that way? I haven't figured it out. But soon I think I'll have for the next round when I come to this podcast, maybe I'll have the answer.
Excellent. Well, I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting that you've done reflection on this and have actively been seeking that. So, what has led to that? Why are you interested in that?
Couple things. One is, of course, I felt like, am I in an echo chamber? Because what I was doing was going well. But that also is a sign that it's probably an echo chamber, right? Like I was in one industry, one domain, one set of people, one set of circle, one set of professional friends, one set of regular friends, and whatnot. So coming out of it itself made me think, okay, what am I doing? What parts of it have gaps, right? It of course raises the question. The moment you take a pause and step back, all these questions come up. And the other thing is 2024 and 2025, as you know, has been an interesting time to live. I think in our past conversation, we would have talked about this, right? Like it's interesting for a 20-year-old, 22-year-old coming out of school and stuff. It's also interesting for somebody who has been in a job, especially as a knowledge worker for 15 plus years. It's an interesting time where you are questioning almost everything. The only good news is this is something I loved when I was talking to you is how do you look at it, right? You can look at the same situation multiple ways. You still look for the silver lining and the positives to use to mold your way, to modify, mold, learn, and grow. So for me, it was more of I was looking at it at the right light about like, okay, what do I need to learn more? What do I need to unlearn? Was the main question actually. So the trigger to answer your question was what do I need to unlearn? And part of it was finding out why I do what I do. Professionally, I think I had some answers. I had some constant reflections. I went back to my old managers. I went back to my old colleagues. It's never perfect, right? It's all like having a family. It's never perfect. So I did do some reflection with all the people that I worked in the past in different capacities to kind of get one perspective. Of course, I've talked to my wife too about some of the things I do at home, which is you do it at work, you do it at home kind of behavior. So she has made me open my eyes for a lot of things. And old friends who have done competitions with me, who have done stuff with me during college days, which I'm still proud of. So they can do kind of a retro of why I do what I do. So again, I'm not done. I'm still in the process of doing it. But as I was doing it, I've slowly started to figure what's the unique proposition I have. How did I become a UX designer, solving complex problems or untangling complex things and coming up with solutions? It's that thread of how I do things parallelly is a realization I'm coming to. So yeah, that's been my process. Like I'm going to India for a month in July, and I'm hoping to meet a lot of friends and then kind of do my own sneaky hidden user interviews to figure out, do more retros. So that's my plan. I hope my friends don't listen to this. So they all know that I'm trying to do sneaky user research while I meet each and every one of them.
Wow. Wow. That is amazing. You do a lot of self
Yeah,
reflection,
trying.
introspection, and definitely, yeah, approaching it like a product designer and working on Vivek 2.0.
Yes, trying. I'll be honest, it all started off with what I am as a parent. The question started that way. Then I realized it's a much bigger question. I tell this, maybe we would have talked about this, right? Like, I tell this to my friends too, professionally and personally. It's like you cannot raise happy kids without you being happy, was the trigger, right? And that trigger led to, okay, if I have to be happy, I need to do things that make me happy personally and professionally. Professionally, mainly because that is most of your life, right? So then that triggers the follow-up question, right? So it's a continuous chain that started off with a simple question, and then it's leading to multiple.
Wow, that's impressive. Let's move on to question 3, final question. What's something you've let go of that has made your life better?
That's part of the whole retrospection process we talked about. So one thing I would say at this point in my life is I was also going with the glamour of founder, creator, entrepreneur, doing your own thing, right? I learned with video audio learner more than reading books, although I'm trying to do my own stack of books that I want to read. I can for some reason do only business work related books. So one thing I wanted, I'm a huge fan of how I built this podcast by Gairas. I've always fantasized it. 5, 6 years back, up until probably 5, 6 years back, I was always thinking like one day, and that one day never happens, right? Then one of my friends had a hard talk with me. He's a Silicon Valley guy. He was saying like, "Hey, every other neighbor has an idea. Doesn't matter these days." And right now, it's a testament because anybody has an idea can go execute stuff with cursor or whatever, right? Digital products predominantly. So I had to let go of the glamour that it has to be your thing. It has to be your creation, your stamp. In that process, what I figured was the joy is in actually building something. So what I really wanted to do was not to have the CEO tag or the founder. It was more of creating something new, hopefully with a bunch of people that you want to work with, right? In whatever capacity. It was a little hard in the beginning because of course I have my own egos and fantasies and assumptions that you hear people say like, hey, you're good at A, B, and C, and then you think like, okay, maybe I could be this, I could be that. But then comes a hard look to realize that's probably not the only thing. The joy is probably in creating something new from scratch, from 0 to 1. So why not it be with others? Why not it be with for someone else's idea, someone else's baby, someone else's product? So letting go of that attachment that it has to be my thing, which didn't let me move, right? I was stagnant and I wasn't moving because I was holding on to that pristine one day coming. And then I am now on a podcast. I built this podcast, letting go of and embracing the joy of let's build something small, something slow and steady and get momentum. That has been the biggest thing I think I let go of, which has been working to my favor so far, especially the last 1.5 years.
Wow, good for you. That sounds like a big growth step
Yeah,
and something that's brought you happiness and liberation.
yeah.
Wonderful. I really enjoyed our conversation, Vivek. Thanks for joining me.
Likewise. It's my pleasure too.
This has been the 3 Answers Podcast. Thank you to today's guest, Vivek in Gothenburg, Sweden. We welcome your feedback. Send us email at 3answerspodcast@gmail.com. In Portland, Oregon, I'm Rob Bednark. Thank you for listening, and I hope you do something you enjoy today.